Okay, so this sixth point, I just came to this realization today, or like very clearly or explicitly today. The idea came to me. Yeah. So, uh, um, yeah. The point is you have to practice in accordance with what you have learned. And previously, I thought that I could just read the sutras, and do nothing afterwards. Just read the sutras. But I realized that you have to actualize what you learn. You have to put into practice what you read in the sutras. And you don't have to like necessarily take a specific phrase or verse from any sutra and then practice that specific verse or phrase. Although you can if you want to, or you can practice a chapter of a certain sutra more generally, or an entire sutra or several sutras like. But the important thing is that you take the gist of what you learned and then you apply that to your life, and you generally can guess what that is and how you can apply that to your life right now. Obviously, you know your circumstances, so you can do that for yourself. As I previously said, piano for my mother. I was thinking this is practicing in accordance with what I learned, but I thought before that I just had to read the sutras. No, the sutras. Um, that's actually why the how do you say this? That's actually why in the Immeasurable Meanings Sutra, I think it's chapter 3, 10 benefits, it says the Buddha, which is the king, and the sutras, which is the queen, king, yes, king. Yes, the Buddha, who is the king, and the sutras, which are the queen, right? So this also relates to, um, if you've read the Lotus Sutra before, you know that in chapter 11 is titled Emergence of the Treasure Tower, and the Buddha there. I forgot the Sanskrit name, but um, there was Shakyamuni and there was the Buddha Many Treasures. It's the same idea. Many treasures is supposed to, um, okay, in this case, I don't. I hope this is not disparaging Shakyamuni in any way. If it is, I ask the universe to forgive me. Well, because I view Shakyamuni as basically God, um, in a certain way, but also I believe that I can become an equal of Shakyamuni. Uh, Forgive me if that sounds arrogant, but after all, that is the point of Buddhist practice in a way, right? Belief that all beings will become Buddhas uh, at a certain point, at a certain time. Uh, so I have strong faith in this that it is possible uh, for all beings. But yeah, basically, many treasures is the Measurable Meaning Sutra says that the Buddhas are the king and the sutras are the queen. So the sutras are the queen, as in they provide us with scripture. They provide us with things to think about, with things to read. But why is the Buddha the king? What does that mean? The sutra should be the king, no? No, the Buddhas are the king. The Buddhas are basically the application of whatever you learn in the scripture, of whatever ideas you learned in the scriptures, or whatever principles you learned in the scriptures, and applying that in your life. That application uh, to 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 Dharma, you know, and using that to, for example, uh, uplift the Sangha. That is Buddhas, right? The sutras are already there, But the Buddhas derive from that the wisdom to apply to real life and to apply to phenomena, which, for example, includes, like, in the example I gave previously, I'm thinking of playing piano for my mother because I was never really able to satisfy myself in terms of, like, the level of playing that I could achieve, and so I never really wanted to also play for her because I thought I'm not good enough, and also it's too full of suffering for me to endure something that I don't really enjoy, and that's one of the reasons why I'm not good at it as well, of course, a big part of it. But if I learn to enjoy it, and I'm like, okay, this is for my mother, which is also for me, right? Um, because when you give, you don't fail to be of benefit to yourself. So I was like, yeah, that's an example of that. So I read the sutras and I was like, okay, earthly desires are enlightenment. That's what Tiantai says, or I think 智疑, right? The Dharma master 智疑 or Tiantai, that's what he said. So he said earthly desires are enlightenment. So I was like, okay, I've heard the teaching, so I have to practice in accordance with what I heard, with what I learned. If earthly desires are enlightenment, that means we have to apply what we learned in the sutras, the principles there, to phenomena. So, what phenomena can I like, what phenomena can I carry out to make someone around me happy? Someone who's close to me is my mother. I mean, we live in the same apartment, so, and we're also like much better in our relationship than, well, we used to be. And it's improving still, of course, continuously, forever and ever. Um, yeah, I was like, okay, my mom is here. Phenomena, piano, I can achieve that phenomena. I can practice piano to give to her, and indirectly to give to myself. Uh, yeah, so that's something very important. So practice in accordance with what you have learned, right? Um, and the giving something to my mother would be an example of the perfection of dana. So the six perfections are really important to practice. What else is really important? Um, if you've read any sutras or treatises, basically any principles that you obtain from anywhere, it doesn't even have to be in Buddhism. It doesn't even have to be from a Buddhist scripture or from a Buddhist master, or, even from a Buddhist. It doesn't even have to be from a Buddhist. But whatever helps other people, just do that. That's an act of a bodhisattva. Whatever words will help other people, or whatever words will help two people, you know, have a better relationship with each other, that's already dharma. That's already an example of giving. Um, but let's say that, uh, you know, uh, you read a sutra and you know that that will help someone. Well, try to tell them about it. Um, but the foremost, uh, I'm just gonna give like I'm gonna give 5 points. You can practice the six perfections. Like, for example, me, practicing piano, and being able to play a piece really well, or like really pleasingly, so that my mom is happy. Um, Second thing is, so six perfections. Second other important thing is the four Brahma abodes or Brahma-viharas, which are the four aspects of love in Buddhism: equanimity, sympathetic joy, compassion, and um, loving kindness. And sympathetic joy, why is it not just joy? I'm just going to touch on this very briefly. You go actively, you actively reach out to make others happy with a smile on your face, or, just alleviate them of suffering, and then smile together afterwards. Well, then you can smile that someone else is happy, and there's your sympathetic joy. Of course, you can also be joyful by yourself, but as the Buddha said, a candle never loses uh, any life, or the duration for which a candle burns is never lessened by that candle sharing its flame with other with other wicks. So basically, when happiness is shared, if it's pure happiness, if it's great happiness that's based uh, on beautiful principles, then that happiness through being shared can only grow. It can never ever be diminished. Um, yeah. Anyways, what was it? Yeah. So the six perfections, the four Brahma abodes, and then this is something super important. I've missed it this entire time, and I learned about it just today. The four methods of embracing beings. They are giving, which is also the first perfection, but giving is material giving, giving of dharma, and giving fearlessness. Three kinds of giving. And then there's also speaking kindly, which I've failed to do often previously, and hopefully I won't repeat the same mistakes again. But sometimes it is necessary to be stern, and of course, no flattery, and don't praise without reason, or it's not even necessarily praising speaking kindly, but speaking kindly is important. Is the second part, and the third is um, beneficial actions, and the fourth is uh, maybe like yeah, going to a place of suffering and then sort of helping other people out of that, which is a little bit, I'm not exactly sure of the distinction between beneficial action and going through hardships with other people and then helping them out of suffering, uh, which is not to say that you're bringing yourself to a point of suffering. You're bringing yourself to a place where there is suffering, but you're not suffering, and you have the wisdom necessary to bring other people in that place of suffering out of their suffering, right? So I'm not exactly sure what the difference between beneficial action and that is, the fourth aspect, but these four methods of embracing beings are very important. So giving, speaking kindly, beneficial actions, and sharing others' hardships and alleviating them of such struggles and suffering. So that's the third one. Fourth one is any sutra that you uh, any sutra that you learned um, that you know will be of benefit to other people. The important thing is you want to get other people to read Dharma themselves. Um, of course, um, we should all we should all Buddhist practitioners should all accord with the Lotus Sutra's instructions on how to do this. So, for example, the Lotus Sutra says, focus on Mahayana as much as possible and not Theravada. Uh, and then, of course, if someone can believe and understand the Lotus Sutra, or you can make it so that you expound to them in a way so that they understand the Lotus Sutra, then that's most wonderful. You can go from the Lotus Sutra and then go back to all the other sutras, or technically you can also build up from less profound sutras all the way up to the Lotus Sutra, but the Lotus Sutra is absolutely indispensable. So, I mean, if you encounter someone who will embrace the Lotus Sutra right from the get-go, well, you're in luck. But yeah, uh, use any like scripture to so what I was trying to say is you want people to delight in the Buddha's Dharma. That way they will go and learn it by themselves. If they go and learn it by themselves, they will also be able to teach others, and you brought them supreme benefit because you don't have to teach them anymore, right? You can focus on on other people who, and then also get them to delight in the Buddha's Dharma. So this is what you want to do. You want to expound any teachings, any sutras in a way that is delightful to others' ears and that alleviates them from suffering or makes them happier than they already are. And then a continuous process from there. So that's the fourth point. The fifth point is separate because, again, it cannot be stressed enough, and it is so, so, so important. This scripture sutra stands alone, and you'd all know what it is already. It is the Lotus Sutra. If you can expound to others the Lotus Sutra and get those people to respond with faith and joy, so you have to also be skillful and interpret the Lotus Sutra in a way that is true to the sutra, but also, is able to bring joy to others. If you can do this, well, as it says in the Lotus Sutra, chapter 22, Entrustment, you will have repaid the debt that you owe to the Buddha, to Shakyamuni, which is absolutely wonderful and much more than I can express right now in words or in my facial expression or in terms of what I'm feeling right now.